and welcome to Despina's Dishes. Today I'm going to show you how to make a classic Greek dessert called Galaktoboureko. Did you know that Galaktoboureko comes from the Greek word gala, meaning milk, and the Turkish word burek, meaning pastry? So you guessed it, Galaktoboureko is a Filo custard dessert which is popular across the Eastern Mediterranean. So Galaktoboureko consists of three components. You have your custard filling, you have your Filo, and you have your syrup. Okay, so now we're going to start with the filling. I've actually added 1/4 cup of salted butter, which is melting away there. I'm now going to add 3/4 cup of sugar, 3/4 cup of semolina, 4 cups of full cream milk. I've just slightly preheated the pan. I'm adding cinnamon stick as well as vanilla bean, the rind of a whole lemon, and a pinch of salt, just a little bit more. Now I'm going to mix that continuously till that thickens and becomes a nice thick custard. Alright, so I've actually got it on a low to medium heat on the cooktop. Now that that butter's melted, I'm going to use a whisk. The whisk is actually going to, I'm using that to aerate the mix. Alright, you can see that's starting to thicken now, so I'm going to stop whisking and go back to the spoon. Okay, the custard filo is actually now thickened enough, so I'm now going to turn that off, and I am going to remove the cinnamon and vanilla sticks. You'll need to, sometimes it falls apart, so you'll need to check your custard filling just in case there's other bits of cinnamon stick or vanilla bean. Alright, now I'm going to leave that to cool now. To avoid it forming a skin on the top of the custard while it's cooling, I'm going to place a bit of baking paper over the top while it cools. Okay, now I'm going to make the syrup. I have preheated the pot, low to medium heat. I'm going to add 1 cup of sugar, 1 cup of water, about a tablespoon of squeezed lemon juice, piece of lemon rind, cinnamon stick, and 3 cloves. Now I'm going to mix this consistently until the sugar dissolves. Once that dissolves, I'm going to leave it to boil and reduce and thicken to a nice syrup. Alright, now that that sugar has dissolved, I'm going to let it simmer and thicken to a nice syrup. Okay, now we're going to start with our Filo casing. I'm going to be using a foil tray. I like using a foil tray wherever possible, so it's easy. You can just dispose of it once I'm finished. We have our butter that I have melted and the Filo on the side. What I've done is I've covered the Filo. For those who don't work as quickly with the Filo, it can dry out. So that's another option to avoid the Filo drying out as you're working. Okay, so now I'm going to start with the casing. I'm going to place lots of butter on the base and around the edges. ready for the pastry. So I am going to add 4 Filo sheets to the base initially. You apply quite a bit of butter in between each of the pastry sheets. Don't be shy with the butter. It's the butter that makes it very nice and crispy and tasty. With the base sheets, they're not a piece of art. No, you just need to place them in and on the base. You just need to be more careful on the layers on the top so it presents well. I'm now going to add 1 more sheet to the base. Right, time to do the centre. Right. Doesn't really matter the order, but I'm going to do the top side first. Once again, lots of butter. Bottom side. Side. Now that is ready for our custard filling. Okay, so this is the filling. It is now cooled down. It's just slightly warm. I'm now going to add the egg to the filling. I've whisked 3 eggs. Okay, so I've thoroughly mixed the egg all the way through that, and it's ready to be poured into the Filo casing. So if there happens to be any larger lumps in your mix, just use a whisk before adding the egg to mix those out and break them down. Okay, now we're ready to enclose the custard cake, the custard. Once again, lots of butter in between each of the layers. Now our Galaktoboureko is ready for its top layers. As I've mentioned, it's the top you need to think about in regards to the presentation. So I'm just going to measure roughly how big my pieces need to be. Just a little mark there, and I'll cut my filo into size. First layer. So I'm going to put about 8 layers on top. This is my 7th layer. And the final, number 8. Filo is now ready to cut. I'm now going to cut my Galaktoboureko before we bake it. Just going to cut through 3/4 of the way. You can cut your Galaktoboureko in squares, diamonds. I'm going to do squares today. I just find it's easier and also less wastage. Right, this is ready to put in the oven. We'll put it in there for about 45 minutes, moderate oven. Sometimes your custard can creep up a little if it's a little bit soft. However, by the time it cooks, it'll be all nice and ready to go. Okay, our syrup is ready. I'm going to take that off the heat now, and I will strain it and let it cool. The Galaktoboureko still needs to cool a little more. I've pulled it out of the oven a little while ago. What I'm going to do to help it cool a little is I'm actually going to cut all the way through. And you need to cut all the way through anyway before you add the syrup. Okay, well the Galaktoboureko has cooled for about an hour and a half. It's now ready for the syrup to be added. Traditionally, Galaktoboureko, it is served with the pastry soft and moist, and to do that you would once again cool the Galaktoboureko and add a hot syrup that's just freshly off the cooktop. However, the one thing my mother always did was serve it with a crispy pastry, Filo pastry, and for that to be the case, you need to actually have the Galaktoboureko cold and the syrup cold. So that's what I'm doing today. So it's a little bit of a twist from the traditional Galaktoboureko. All right, let's add the syrup. So I'm just going to drizzle it over. As you can see, the syrup's nice and thick. I'm going to add all of the syrup. To brush the syrup over the top as well. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to let this sit for a couple of hours, and then it'll be ready to serve because the syrup would have been absorbed by the pastry and by the custard, and it'll be very delicious. So there you have it. Enjoy L.L.C
and I look forward to seeing you again soon.